that you're meeting for 6 months like this, and then going to, going to culminate with a month-long Datun. It's so auspicious that you guys can do this in the world now. I do have to correct one mistake, however. In Tashi's exuberance, his irrational exuberance, as we might say, he has designated me as a senior instructor. In Siddhartha's intent, there is no such thing as senior instructor. It's only instructor. And so if there's any senior at all, it's maybe a better word would be old. So I would like to say that right at the beginning. So let's go ahead. I think the custom is to spend 5 minutes of sitting. So let's go ahead and do 5 minutes of sitting. So Ina, would you please go ahead and ring the bell?
I just want to say a few words of introduction to my friend Chris J. He's been practicing and studying the Dharma for more than half a century. I think 56 years I counted up, ever since he spent 7 years in Zen monasteries in Japan in the early 1970s. Chris did a 3-year retreat under Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche's direction, and he's a long-time instructor for Rinpoche, guiding his students and leading retreats and practice. Whenever we have any practice question, we always say, ask Chris. So thank you so much, Chris, for leading us into some key Mahayana understandings today. And I just want to mention to anyone, our internet is a little unstable, so we cut out early. I don't know if Ina mentioned this, but due to a bit of a glitch in our Zoom account, we need to finish our class 15 minutes earlier today. So we won't have breakout groups today. We'll go straight into questions and discussion after Chris's talk, and he will then leave us with some wisdom on the Bodhisattva Vow. So over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tashi. So,
A breakout group. He's talking.
So last week, we entered into the Bodhisattvayāna, or the Mahayana, where we began engaging the topic of bodhicitta. And the image that Carolyn used was so good. The image, when you're studying the Hinayana or the Shravakayana, is like it's like the footprint of an elephant, and you have the water that's standing in this footprint. And when you're engaging the Shravakayana, that just seems so large. So it seems so huge. But at some point, we enter into the Mahayana, where we develop the aspiration of bodhicitta. And bodhicitta being defined as the determination to enlighten all sentient beings, to awaken all sentient beings, before I myself go into the final cessation. So that means you're basically coming back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, until all sentient beings are liberated down to the last blade of grass. So this is no longer the water in an elephant's footprints. This is now, you're looking out now at a vast, vast ocean. As Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche says, the vast aspiration of the Mahayana, of bodhicitta. And the aspiration, again, is to enlighten, to awaken all sentient beings. Bodhicitta. Bodhi means enlightened or awakened. Citta means mind. So when you're engaging on such a path, it's really impossible to do this alone. So this comes to the first of the topics we're going to talk about today, which is the Kalyanamitra, or the spiritual friend. The Dharma is a living transmission from person to person. You really can't study this in isolation. I suppose if you're a Pratika Buddha, then you can read the texts and so on and so forth, and then become, awakened by your own. But there's just so few who have that kind of karma, that kind of discipline. No, we really need to, the Dharma is something where we're always in relationship with people. We're always in a group. And so Kalyanamitra, the idea of a spiritual friend, is just a hugely important idea, particularly at the beginning of any of these conversations about the bodhicitta. Kalyana means good, beautiful, auspicious, virtuous, beneficial. Mitra means friend, companion, or ally. So all the way back from the beginning in the Pali Canon, the Buddha talked about this. There's a Pali Sutta called the Upada Sutta. In that sutra, Ananda, one of the foremost disciples of the Buddha, suggests that good friendship, or Kalyanamitra tata, good friendship might be half of the holy life. And the Buddha famously corrected him, quote, "Do not say so, Ananda. It is the whole of the holy life." So this importance of the Kalyanamitra, your spiritual friend, it's a striking claim, this relational aspect, this interpersonal aspect. Again, it's not supplementary to the Dharma, it's central to the Dharma. And in the Mahayana, it really does take on a sort of an amplified importance. For instance, there's a sutra called the Gandhavyuha Sutra. It's the final chapter, the final book of the Avatamsaka Sutra. It's basically an extended meditation on this theme, where the young supplicant Sudana visits 52 Kalyanamitras in order. So who are these Kalyanamitras? They're monks, they're nuns, they're lay people, there's goddesses, there's a perfume merchant in there, there's a ship's captain, and even children. Isn't it the case where sometimes out of the mouths of children, as we say, they'll say something that'll make you reflect, that'll really make you reflect about, am I really practicing the Dharma or am I not? Just by the way the child says something, a little insight about you. This is the realm of the Kalyanamitra, the spiritual friend. So this kind of democratizes who can actually be a spiritual friend. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, of course, there's the whole topic of guru. So that's a different topic. It's a far more vast topic than Kalyanamitra. And so we're not engaging that today. We're engaging this idea of the relational, the interpersonal dynamic aspect of the Buddha Dharma. So some qualities to look for, and if you're looking for Kalyanamitras, some qualities to look for would be disciplined, stable, particularly stable in samadhi, wise in prajna, learned, compassionate, fearless, free from attachment to material offerings, patient, tireless. These aspects, these fantastic aspects of a Kalyanamitra, and above all, connected to the lineage. Because one of the aspects of Dharma that we're actually quite proud about as Dharma practitioners, the lineage goes all the way back to the Buddha, and it is a recordable transmission that goes from teacher to student, all the way up until now. And so these are the qualities of the Kalyanamitra. So I'd really ask you to reflect on who have been your Kalyanamitras until now. I mean, how did you become interested in joining this course? How did you get to where you are today? Who inspired you? Who guided you? Right? You could consider even the most negative sort of event or person in your life as having spurred you on to become a Dharma practitioner. You could consider them a Kalyanamitra in that regard. But this idea that the Buddha Dharma occurs, it's relational. It happens in it's not a solitary, liberation is not a solitary achievement, but arises in a field of virtuous encounter. This is the whole topic of the Kalyanamitra. So that's the first topic that I wanted to engage today. So a second topic is really has to do with understanding the sort of the lay of the land when it comes to the discussion about bodhicitta. So when we talk about bodhicitta, we sometimes say there's relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. So as Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche would say, the absolute bodhicitta is really the view. And I think that the next 1 or 2 sessions, you're going to be talking about absolute bodhicitta in much, much more detail. The topic of emptiness, and then how that is elucidated in the different teachings and commentaries, not only of the Buddha, but also Nagarjuna, Chandakirti, and so on and so forth. So we're not going to talk about the emptiness aspect today, the absolute bodhicitta, but we are going to talk about relative bodhicitta. And in relative bodhicitta, we have two. We have the aspiration and we have the action. So all of the lamas, they will tell us how important the aspiration aspect is for bodhicitta. As an example, in our 3-year retreat, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche came and visited us in our 3rd year. And he came several times, and once in the 3rd year, he would always stay up in that house at the top of the hill that was Rinpoche's house. And he would invite us up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would actually then go up, and then for the next 10 hours or so, he would teach. And here we were in the 3rd year of the retreat, thinking that we were advanced practitioners by now, so on and so forth. Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche looked at us and he said, you know, you guys lack aspiration. Aspiration bodhicitta is the most important. So he spent 10 hours teaching us on aspiration, repeating over and over to us how important having aspiration is. As Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche says, you know, if you want to boil an egg, if you want to have a hard-boiled egg for breakfast, first of all, you have to have the aspiration to have a hard-boiled egg. Or, you know, if you want to climb a mountain, you have to have the aspiration to climb a mountain. Otherwise, you'll never get yourself out of the chair to go up and climb the mountain. In the same way, here in the Buddha Dharma, we have to have the aspiration, and we have to have this aspiration over and over and over. So when we talk about relative bodhicitta, aspiration and action, really the aspiration part of it amounts to so much of it. 80%, 90% of the time, we're engaging relative bodhicitta with aspiration. So we have all these prayers, may I attain, may we. Anytime you, at least in English, anytime we start the sentence with may I, or may we, we're always uttering some kind of aspiration. So we come to the greatest aspiration, almost central to Mahayana Buddhism, which is the Four Immeasurables, the Four Brahmaviharas. So we say immeasurable because they're immeasurable in scope, they're boundless in scope. The depth and the quality of these 4 aspirations is inexhaustible. And the merit generated by making this aspiration is incalculable. So that's why we call these immeasurable. So the first one, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So this equates to loving kindness. The second one, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. That's compassion. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. That is sympathetic joy. And lastly, may all sentient beings dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Sometimes it's said attachment, aggression, and prejudice. So may all sentient beings dwell in equanimity. So let's actually define what we mean here by loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So loving kindness, Maitri, is the wish that all sentient beings possess happiness and its causes. This is not sentimental affection, but is an active, undiscriminating benevolence extended without limit to friends, strangers, and enemies equally. Okay, all right, now, okay, can you extend that to the people who you dislike the most? How about to the current head of the various different governments that are creating so much havoc in the world? How about to those who create violence and bring violence into the world? Are you really able to have loving kindness towards them? Well, let's go on and see what we've got here. Compassion. Compassion, or karuna, Mahakaruna as they call it. The wish that all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. Karuna is sometimes said to be Maitri's other face, loving kindness's other face. Where loving kindness reaches towards happiness, compassion removes the source of the pain. Then, and of course, all of this is based on your understanding of the Four Noble Truths. You know, the first noble truth being everything is unsatisfactory. There's pain all over the place. So we have loving kindness and then compassion, which moves towards the removal of pain. Then, of course, sympathetic joy, rejoicing in the happiness and virtues of others, the direct antidote to envy, often considered the most difficult of the four to genuinely cultivate, because ego clinging instinctively resists celebrating others' good fortune. This dissolves, sympathetic joy dissolves the zero-sum game, the zero-sum logic of this sort of small, contracted self. By zero-sum meaning, basically, if they get good stuff, then I don't. That's the zero-sum. And Rinpoche will say, for instance, you'll look at all of those people who get a chance to be close to Rinpoche, and we get jealous. Don't we get a bit jealous because all those people get daily interaction with Rinpoche, with daily interaction with the great teachers? They have all of these resources at their disposal to be able to travel at a moment's notice. So rather than the ordinary person would look at that and be envious and perhaps jealous. But here when we invoke, when we really giving arise to the aspiration aspect of Bodhicitta, we're really having the utter joy in their merit. And as Rinpoche said, not only do you have utter joy, but you actually look at them and you see that your Bodhisattva vow is actually succeeding. They're close to Rinpoche, they're getting liberated before you. This is fantastic. This is exactly what you're praying for as a Bodhisattva. Then, of course, we come to the big one, equanimity. So, Paltar Rinpoche's definition for equanimity is, it means giving up our hatred for enemies and our infatuation with friends, having an even-minded attitude towards all beings, free of attachment to those close to us, and aversion for those who are distant. It's the ground in which the other three can operate without partiality or burnout. Okay, great. Let's talk about equanimity now. This is really the hardest. I mean, we don't want this to be abstract. I think one of the things that Carolyn Gimian was talking about last week is the feeling aspect of the Dharma. So, is equanimity, is this a logical thing or is this an emotional thing? Well, you can understand the logic of it, but do you really feel the emotion of equanimity? Where you have the same kind of loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy for everyone, not just the people you like. You know, as it's said, Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva compassion, his compassion falls like rain on everyone equally. It's not like Avalokiteshvara sitting up there and saying, well, you deserve rain, but you don't. It's not the way, this is the way ordinary people think. Avalokiteshvara's compassion falls like rain on everyone equally. Because Avalokiteshvara understands the suffering of sentient beings. Suffering, the suffering of loss, so on and so forth. Avalokiteshvara can see directly people are just simply trying to be happy. But they're doing exactly what makes them unhappy. They're doing exactly the things that rope them, bind them into samsara lifetime after lifetime or after lifetime. I once was in a teaching where the Lama was telling us about an old Lama in Tibet, and he would just sit there and cry. He wouldn't teach, he would just sit there and cry. You know, there's another story from our 3-year retreat about this. My wife, Sydney, was on the retreat together with us. Drupta Khyentse Rinpoche came. He was only 29 years old then, so very young, still young, but so he came. And he said, well, I don't have anything to offer you guys, but, if you want to come and talk to me, you can. So my wife, Sydney, goes up to have an interview with him. She goes into the room and she bursts out in tears, weeping, sobbing. And Drupta Khyentse Rinpoche asked, well, why are you weeping? She says, because I miss my grandchild so much. Grandchild, when we left to go on the retreat, the grandchild was only like a month or 2 old, just a tiny little baby. And she loves babies, and she loves this grandchild. She was weeping. Drupta Khyentse Rinpoche looked at her and said, by the end of this retreat, you'll feel that way about all sentient beings. So really, it's this aspiration that we have, the aspiration to give up our hatred for enemies, our infatuation for friends. Because if you look at it, as Jema Chinse Wangpo says in his commentary on the Nundro, throughout all the time, all your lifetimes, all of the sentient beings at one point have been your friends. They've also been your enemies. Enemies, then friends. Friends, then enemies. And as they say, all sentient beings at one point have been your mother. So that's why they say all mother sentient beings. And of course, so many people in the modern world have trouble with their mothers. So you could say all child sentient beings, because by the logic of it, If all sentient beings have been your mother, they've also been your child. So another comparison, the Bodhisattva Manjushri, his compassion is like the sun. It shines on everyone, warms everyone equally. Manjushri is not sitting and saying, oh, you deserve compassion and you don't, so I'm only going to shine on you. Again, this is how ordinary people think, and I do have to admit, I think this way sometimes also. I have to constantly remind myself of the aspiration bodhicitta. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings dwell in equanimity that is free from passion, aggression, and prejudice. Passion, aggression, and prejudice. As Rinpoche once said, he said, you know, if you're a Democrat, that's a mistake. If you're a Republican, that's a mistake. If you're neither Democrat or a Republican, that's a mistake. And you can understand that by just looking at this last line. May all sentient beings dwell in equanimity, free from passion, aggression, and prejudice, or attachment and aversion. May I myself embody these qualities. Some days it feels like we can, other days it feels like it's as far away as, Mount Meru is from the seat where I'm sitting here. But we engage in this as best as we possibly can. That's why every day we take this vow. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. So I guess my question to you is, what do you think about this? Does anyone have comments or questions or aspirations? Or even better, can anyone admit to the fact of actually having preferences for people? I like these ones, but I don't like those ones. That's the best, because Dharma works at really a deep level in you, where you're really turning. It's turning. It's really turning from being self-centered to being other-centered. This is how Dharma works, and if Dharma is kept in the realm of the intellect only, so sad. It's such a waste of time. You have this Dharma in front of you. Let's actually admit to where we are. I think, who wrote the book Start Where You Are? This is not start where you want to be, but start where you are. So tell me, how do you feel about this, really? Okay, so Barbara Murphy Warrington raised your hand. So tell me, what is your comment or your question? Oh, what a beautiful face, smiling.
Thank you. You're kind. I'm a mother of 2 sons, and I struggle with this every day. I don't know how to relate to other people in the same way that I love my sons. And it's a struggle that I'm constantly engaged in. So I do have preferences. And I'm satisfied right now with being a fake bodhisattva, because I have a strong aspiration to move in the direction where my compassion and loving kindness can expand beyond my sons to an even larger and larger group of people. I wanted to ask you about your comment that you made about the last immeasurable, about equanimity toward all sentient beings. Could you speak a little bit about the comment that you made that Rinpoche said, if you're neither a Democrat or Republican, it's wrong, because I made the choice to be independent, to focus on not the party, but on the issues. And so is that wrong?
No. Yeah, maybe I should have explained that a little better. Well, first of all, the idea of being an aspirational bodhisattva is exactly what we're talking about here. So as the years go forward, as the days, the months, the years go forward, our capacity expands. And it's really hard. I mean, imagine having the same level of loving kindness, compassion, and joy towards the kids who bully your son. It's really hard, isn't it? And so, there's this fantastic aspiration. I have to find this aspiration. This is translated by Nalanda. It's so good. It's part of a set of shlokas or aspiration prayers by Longchenpa. Whoever has faith in me, as well as whoever curses or slanders me, may their evil deeds be exhausted, and may they be free of kleshas and abandon the river of existence. Kleshas mean these disturbing emotions. Whoever has faith in me, as well as whoever curses or slanders me, as well as whoever bullies my sons. So you're having this aspiration, and just by articulating this aspiration, that's good enough for now. I mean, as Rinpoche says, we fake it until we make it. This is they say that in all kinds of realms of human endeavor. You have to start where you are, basically. You don't start where you think you're supposed to be. You start where you are, and you see how Dharma can begin working so that you can have compassion. Okay, so let's look at the boys who bully. What are they trying to do? They're just trying to be happy themselves. They're hoping for acceptance. They're hoping to be respected. They're scared of not being accepted. They're scared of looking weak. They hope to look wonderful. They're scared of looking like just ordinary. This is samsara, and this is how samsara works at its hopes and its fears. And it's so sad to see what people do when they're driven by hopes and fears like that. Hope for happiness, fear of being unhappy. Hope for riches, fear of being poor. These hopes and fears, hope for recognition, fear of obscurity, hopes and fears, and you see what these bullying boys are doing. So it's not that hard then when you see how they're making themselves suffer just by their hopes, and so you can understand that. But actually then feeling that kind of loving kindness and compassion, you grow into that as you practice.
I'm super trying to do that with the leadership of our country while we create incredible harm and pain and suffering and death around the world. So I'm not yet there that I can, feel really passionate or compassionate toward them, but I'm trying to understand the little boy that's being manifested in their behavior, but I'm not sure I can forget the damage that we're doing around the world and taking life and injuring the earth. That's a real challenge for me. Thank you very much.
That's such a wonderful, because this is exactly the point here. I mean, again, as Dharma practitioners, peace starts with ourselves. We can't go out in the world and try to really instigate the bodhicitta of action until we have really developed in ourselves a formidable aspiration that all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from happiness. Until we really can embody that, then we can go out and begin the action bodhicitta stuff. But, this is exactly the challenge we have. That's why, it's so hard practicing Dharma in the world now, but this is exactly what the world needs, isn't it? It's exactly what the world needs at this point.
My first teacher said we were born for these times.
Exactly.
No,
Therefore, we have the aspiration to be fearless.
fearless.
Having this fearless confidence of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva is not one who wanes. The Bodhisattva is not one who keels over and gives up. We take the vow of the Bodhisattva to liberate all sentient beings, and we take that seriously over lifetimes after lifetimes, even if it's only liberating one sentient being in this particular life. Good. Carolyn, Susie, you have your hand up, yes.
Yes. Hi, Chris. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes, I can.
So this is a very silly question. I'm sorry. But I want to know, how do we reconcile this practice of aspiration bodhicitta, generating loving kindness, or when some negative feeling arises, we transform it?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile that with the practice of seeing things directly as they are and not trying to change? And if we have taken the Bodhisattva vow and we focus on, this other practice of trying to see things as they are we practicing bodhicitta, or?
That's actually the grandest and most, as Nyosho Ken Rinpoche told, Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche asked that question to Nyosho Ken Rinpoche, and he said, seeing things as they are. I assume you're talking about Rigpa awareness and so on. That is the grandest way of practicing bodhicitta. Because as we practice the Dharma, things become simpler and simpler and simpler. And it comes to that kind of practice that you're talking right now, but that is the greatest of the practices of bodhicitta. But for most of us, myself included, we need to start somewhere, and starting then with the aspiration bodhicitta. Apparently, His Holiness the Dalai Lama asked that same question to Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche. And so Rinpoche was once relayed that as an antidote. It's an important question. Okay, look, we're going to be now, it's only 20 minutes before we have to go. So there's many, many, many questions, which I'm glad and happy to answer, but not now, because we need to get to the third topic today, which is taking the vow of the Bodhisattva.
Chris, I believe it's 27 minutes before we
27
need.
minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think if we,
Yeah.
Do you want to take a few more questions, or you want to go to the Bodhisattva vow?
Let's go to the Bodhisattva vow, and at the end, we'll spend the remaining time with questions, just so that we have a chance to do it. So please hold your questions. I'm so glad to see, I'm seeing all these questions come in. I'm so glad that there's this level of interest here. Okay. So as Dzongsar Rinpoche said about this vow, it's probably the best vow you're ever going to take. You're taking a vow that you yourself will awaken all sentient beings. This is the bodhicitta of a shepherd, where you're pushing all sentient beings through the gate before you yourself go. Rinpoche said that even one moment of this vow is better than taking a vow to build 100 hospitals. So in order to take a vow, you need to have witnesses, because that's the witnesses actually are the ones who will hold you to the vow. And in the case of the refuge vows and the Bodhicitta vows, the witnesses are all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are in front of you. The Dakinis are there. The Arahats, as I said, the Bodhisattvas, so Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, Vajrapani, Nivarana Vishkambin, and so all the Bodhisattvas are here, and you're all sitting before them to take this vow. Now, usually when we take the Bodhisattva vow, we have taken refuge first, and as I understand it, there's not been a formal refuge vows here. So, and I also don't know if all of you are ready to take the Bodhisattva vow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read for you the language of the Bodhisattva vow. And those of you who want to take this Bodhisattva vow, you can take it. Those of you who don't feel quite ready to do it, then just simply sit back and appreciate the beauty of this language. This is the most beautiful language that there is. When Rinpoche gives this vow, he always quotes Shantideva, the great Indian poet, the monk, scholar, who wrote the book called The Way of the Bodhisattva, Bodhisattvacharya Avatara. And these shlokas are some of the most beautiful poetry in the world. So I'm going to share. Okay. So before we take the Bodhisattva vow, we praise the three jewels and then we take refuge. So we're going to sing this in Sanskrit. I'll play the song so you can sing. Those of you who know this can sing along. Those of you who don't know this, just simply appreciate the beauty. Homage to the Buddha, the teacher, homage to the Dharma, the protector, homage to the great Sangha. To all these three, I continually offer homage. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha.
Namo Buddhaya Guruve Namo Dharmaya Taine Namo Sanghaya Mahate Tribhyopi Satatam Namo Buddhaya Guruve Namo Dharmaya Taine Namo Sanghaya Mahate Tribhyopi Satatam Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami. Buddham sharanam gacchami. Dhammam sharanam gacchami. Sangham sharanam gacchami.
So here is the text of the Bodhisattva Vow. This is extracted from the 3rd chapter of the Bodhicitta, the Way of the Bodhisattva. For all those ailing in the world, until their every sickness has been healed, may I myself become for them the doctor, the nurse, the medicine itself. Raining down a flood of food and drink, may I dispel the ills of thirst and famine, and in the ends marked by scarcity and want, may I myself appear as drink and sustenance. For sentient beings, poor and destitute, may I become a treasure ever plentiful, and lie before them closely in their reach, a varied source of all that they might need. May I be a guard for those who are protectorless, a guide for those who journey on the road. For those who wish to cross the water, may I be a boat, a raft, a bridge. May I be an isle for those who yearn for land, a lamp for those who long for light, for all who need a resting place, a bed. For those who need a servant, may I be their slave. Just as all the Buddhas of the past have brought forth the awakened mind, and in the precepts of the Bodhisattvas step by step abode and trained, likewise, for the benefit of beings, I will bring to birth the awakened mind, and in those precepts, step by step, I will abide and train myself. Today my life has given fruit. This human state has now been well assumed. Today I take my birth in the Buddha's line, and I become the Buddha's child and heir. In every way, then, I will undertake activities befitting such a rank, and I will do no act to mar or compromise this high and faultless lineage. For I am like a blind person who has found a precious gem inside a heap of dust. For so it is, by some strange chance, that Bodhicitta has been born in me. And so today, within the sight of all protectors, I summon beings calling them to Buddhahood. And until that state is reached, to every earthly joy, may gods and demigods and all the rest rejoice. And then the dedication also from the Bodhicitta. As long as space remains, As long as the world remains, may I too remain to alleviate the sufferings of the world. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may I too remain to alleviate the sufferings of the world. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may I too remain to alleviate the sufferings of the world.
आकाशस्य स्थितिर्यावत् यावच्च जगतः स्थितिः तावन्मम स्थितिर्भूयात् जगद्दुःखानि निघ्नतः आकाशस्य स्थितिर्यावत् यावच्च जगतः स्थितिः तावन्मम स्थितिर्भूयात् जगद्दुःखानि निघ्नतः तावन्मम स्थितिर्भूयात् जगद्दुःखानि निघ्नतः तावन्मम स्थितिर्भूयात् जगद्दुःखानि निघ्नतः।
So beautiful. So, what do you think?
There were a few messages in the chat, Chris. If you want to take them, I can
Okay.
read some of them out loud.
Yeah, please, would you go ahead and read?
Okay, so I think the first question came from Marie, who asked, "What to do when you become old and no longer interact with anyone? Only aspiration is left." And thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, well, we're all facing that, aren't we? One of the, I've heard it said that the purpose of practicing Dharma is to prepare for death. So the Dharma practitioner will, particularly one who is well practiced, having really embodied this aspiration bodhicitta, will die an easier death, or at least in the bardo states, in the intermediate states, will have a much easier time than if you were just going in as a someone with no refuge. So we never ever give up the aspiration bodhicitta. Again, this is the aspiration that we have the bodhicitta of a shepherd, where we're going to push all sentient beings in front of us. Now, when you are going to begin engaging action bodhicitta, now there's some meditations that you can do. And I think that comes down to, I think in several sessions, there's going to be a class on the Lojong teachings, where we practice Tonglen, say, for instance, where we take on the sufferings of others, let it dissolve, and then we breathe out loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, and so on. And so even if you're living alone, gosh, that's even better. Because living alone, then, you have time. You don't have any disturbances. You can practice Lojong, you can practice this Tonglen, you can practice meditation. If you're a Vajrayana practitioner, a deity, you can do retreats. It's the best. So there's never a possibility of not being able to practice bodhicitta if you're living alone. Sometimes it's even better. Just don't get involved in reading newspapers too much, because then it's just a waste of time. It's interesting. Sydney and I have started watching this series called The Newsroom. And it's, and the series was produced like 15 years ago or something, The political issues that are coming up are exactly what's going on today. So this stuff repeats itself over and over and over. When you're living alone, you don't have to engage that stuff anymore. You can just practice. Next question.
Thank you. Emma is asking, can you say more about compassion moving towards a removal of pain?
I'm not sure what you want me to say.
Emma, can you please follow up with this question? Like, what do you want to know exactly? Meanwhile, Tek Vui Sun is sharing.
Okay. I see what. Okay, because I had written in the where loving kindness reaches towards happiness, compassion is really more about removing the pain. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Instead of moves towards, let's say it's more about removing the pain and suffering of sentient beings. Loving kindness is really wishing for that sentient beings be happy, and compassion really wishes that their pain is removed. That would be a better way to put it. I'm sorry, Ina, go ahead.
Yes, the Tek Vui Sun is asking, I admit that I do have preferences. How do I practice to extend equanimity to other people? I don't really hate them. In fact, many times I sort of understand their sufferings, but I have a kind of thought that, you can change if you really want to. You do have a choice. Is this egocentric or just too extreme as being dualistic in a way?
Well, I wouldn't worry about all that. What I would do would be when the Lojong class comes around, definitely very earnestly and seriously practice Lojong. One of the great Lojong practices is exchanging self for other, where you put yourself in the shoes of another person. You actually imagine yourself as that person and feel what it's like to be them. Very instructive to do that. There's no hurry when we do this practice. It's not just momentarily. But you actually put yourself in their shoes and imagine what it's like to be them. Particularly, it's easy to do if it's somebody you like, but if it's somebody who's really causes you pain and suffering, somebody you really don't like, put yourself in their shoes and feel what they're feeling. Their insecurities, their fears, their hopes. And what is it that they hope for from you? Now that you've taken the Bodhisattva vow or aspired to take the Bodhisattva vow. Okay, next question.
Bill Kimbrough is asking, are equanimity and non-duality the same, similar, or how do they relate?
Yeah. Hi, Bill. Non-duality. Oh, well, yeah, non-duality. The entire Buddhist path is a path of non-duality. And so when we practice relative bodhicitta, we are having the aspiration to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings, bringing them joy and happiness. when you practice absolute bodhicitta, the view is one of non-duality. And when we have the view of non-duality, first we engage that intellectually in the Madhyamika teachings, but then we actually practice and practice and practice and practice until we can actually experience moments of non-dual realization. So I think, I could go on forever about how these things mesh together, but I think you can understand that you can see that the aspiration bodhicitta, the relative bodhicitta, is absolutely essential for anyone who has the aspiration to practice or to realize absolute bodhicitta. And the great lamas will say there's no difference between the two. Okay, next.
Nadia Barip is asking, fearless confidence of the Bodhisattva. Confident into what?
I don't know. What would you say? I mean, in this world, everything is trying to make us not confident. They tell us that we need to have the latest clothes, that we have to be dressed beautifully, that we have to have the proper makeup, or if we're counterculture people, we have to adhere to counterculture standards and so on and so forth. Everything is based on fear. We have the aspiration here to have the fearless confidence. Otherwise, how can you help sentient beings? You're really going against the prevailing wisdom, the prevailing style of the culture, to be self-centered. Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche once said to us, he said, basically, bodhicitta is being other-centered instead of self-centered. I notice the grandchildren will come to our house and it's time, they want to sit down in the living room, and they always gravitate towards the best seats. That in the living, some seats are more comfortable, some less comfortable. That's because they've not heard this topic about being other-centered. It's not the seat that I want, it's the seat that you want. It goes down to this simple change in the attitude of mind. Being other-centered rather than self-centered. Worrying about others' happiness, not my own happiness. Removing their suffering, not my own suffering. As a matter of fact, I'll take on the suffering of others. That's what we do in Tonglen practice. I think I've gotten far away from the question, but that's sort of my ramblings on your question. I do think we have like 3 minutes remaining.
Yeah, maybe one more question from Roberto. It's quite a long one, but I'll try to do my best. Bodhicitta is the aspiration to postpone our own enlightenment until all beings are enlightened. However, from the ultimate point of view, one could say that there is no self and no others. Yet bodhicitta seems to preserve that duality. If there is no self and no others, who is benefiting whom? Sometimes it feels like a bit waking up from a nightmare and then wanting to fall asleep again in order to return to the same dream and rescue the fictional characters that appeared in it. How should I understand this apparent contradiction?
Well, as Rinpoche loves to quote in the Diamond Sutra, it's in the Prajnaparamita Diamond Sutra, it says there is no such thing as sentient beings. Now you're engaging on the absolute level at that point. All right, so relatively, we take the vow, the aspiration to liberate all sentient beings, and we take this very seriously, and we act that way in the world. We try to act that way in the world. In the absolute sense, we come to the realization that actually, is there such as, has anyone ever not been liberated? so on and so forth. That's the way the conversation goes. So,
And maybe one yes or no question from Elena. Is drinking alcohol permitted after one takes the Bodhisattva vow?
maybe. So the idea is not to we really do think about the extremes, the four extremes that you will talk about in the view section. The Mahayana is really the middle way, so we don't want to be on the extreme of this side or the extreme of that side. So alcohol and such intoxicants are fine, just so long as it doesn't let you get carried away. You're not a monk or a nun, after all. Monks and nuns take the vow to not have these type of intoxicants, but you're not taking that vow. Rather in the Bodhisattva or in the refuge section, when you take refuge, you're actually taking the vow of you should not, there's only 3 vows. You should not take refuge once you've taken refuge in the Buddha, you must not take refuge in worldly gods. Once you've taken refuge in the Dharma, you must refrain from doing harm to any living being. Once you've taken refuge in the Sangha, you must not keep company with those who hold wrong and extremist views. These are part of the refuge vows. And so there's nothing in there about alcohol. So, a lot of people come to the Dharma from the world of addiction. And boy, I can certainly understand the pain and suffering of addiction because, and so, be easy with yourself, be gentle. One of the things that you see in the great lamas over and over is this vast, joyous sense of humor. So be easy with yourself, sort of laugh at yourself, sort of enjoy having taken the Bodhisattva vow, having taken refuge, and don't go to too many extremes. Okay, I think that's going to be it for today.
On that note, Tashi, did you want to conclude with some words, remarks?
Yeah, I just, Chris, you've not just told us about the Four Immeasurables and the Kalyanamitra and the Bodhisattva Vow, you've beautifully communicated the feeling and the very quality of aspiration. So I can't thank you enough. More than information, you've communicated exactly what Carolyn was talking about, the feeling. So thank you so much. And maybe you could lead us in the dedication of merit, which I think is what this is all about.
Okay. Is there a precious book?
Sorry, Chris, did you see my screen? I just shared it. It's just by this merit.
By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may all beings be free.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I'm going to ask everyone to unmute themselves to say bye and thank you.
I would like to say one more
Okay.
thing before we go, is this this famous sloka about Bodhicitta. Precious Bodhicitta, may it take birth in those in whom it has not yet taken birth. May it not diminish in those in whom it has taken birth. And may it increase more and more. This is such an important shloka. Avalokitesvara Rinpoche came to the Sakya monastery a couple of years ago, spent the whole time teaching about that shloka.
Wow.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank
Thank you.
you
Very much.
very much.
See you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
You're the best.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Gracias.